What's good, Knicks Nation? Your boy Dexter Henry here with another edition of New York Got Game. Happy New Year to everyone. And with it being the new year, we're going to focus on this episode on the Knicks' first couple of games of the New Year's. They have themselves a pretty good test. They'll be back at Madison Square Garden after a 3-game road trip. They will host the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers on Friday and Saturday night, respectively. So, for this episode, we're going to break down those two matchups. We have two really good guests. We're going to talk about the Hawks and the Sixers, how the Knicks can fare against those two Eastern Conference foes. Should be a good one. We're not going to waste any time. So let's get right into it. The Knicks, they open up the 2026 portion of their season with a familiar opponent coming to Madison Square Garden. That would be the Atlanta Hawks. Knicks fans know them well, but the Hawks, their season has been a little bit rough lately. Rough time in the month of December. They are trying to right the ship, and we'll see what happens in this matchup at the Garden on Friday night. So, joining me to talk about the Knicks versus Hawks matchup is a writer for Peachtree Hoops. His name is Graham Chapple, and he joins me now. Graham, how you doing, man?
Hey Dex, how's it going, man? I'm better than the Hawks this December, I'll tell you that much.
Rough times for the Hawks in December, as you know well. Glad you're doing good. Happy New Year to you. Hopefully
And
you
to you,
had a
man.
great holiday. Always good to talk some Hawks hoops with you here. Wish it was a little bit more winning for you, but we'll see how this all turns around. So I guess we'll start with this, Graham. When you zoom out right now and you look at this Hawks team and everything that went on with them in December, how would you describe their identity or the feeling of their identity as they head into this matchup against the Knicks on Friday?
I think it's something that is changing all the time, and it's different now to when the season started. Because when the season, heading into the season, a lot of different changes, all to try and support Trey Young and to bring out the best in Trey Young. Bring out the best in Trey Young would bring out the best in the Hawks. And when he went down with injury, it really forced them to have to obviously play so differently. Like Young, the way he commands the offense, passes the ball, gets his shots, a lot has to change. And the emergence of Jalen Johnson that period when he was out, there was a real feeling like we can't do things the same as we did before. And so with the Young kind of coming back into the fold now, it's trying to incorporate him and Johnson in the way that brings out Johnson's strengths. So that identity is still being formed. Young's only back, he's not back too long. So Quinn Snyder is still, has talked about, still needing to try and figure out not just rotation stuff all across the board, but how to best use Johnson and Young now together. But with Johnson now in this clearly elevated role, that as the league has seen him emerge in this stretch without Young, and the numbers he's been putting up has been fantastic, but it hasn't really translated to many wins so far. But yeah, the identity is changing all the time, and dare I say, it's going to continue to change as they adjust because the Hawks can't go back to how things were. This
Hmm.
Johnson has to take more of a front role, but it's difficult to. They're still very very much learning each other out still in these new roles.
It's always interesting, right, Graham, when a team realizes, whether well, this one has been changed because of injury, right? Where they realize it's what you just said. They can't go back to how
Mm.
things were. This has to look different now. And I want to get into that a little bit deeper with you with Trey Young, like if that actually is possible, right? Because I think that is a big question around the Hawks. But when I looked at the Hawks and you watch this team this year, and you're like, okay, they've got some individual players that are really good on defense, right? But they've struggled defensively. When the Hawks struggle, what are you seeing in terms of them when they're trying to get stops late in games? Because they've also lost a bunch of close games where they were unable to get stops. What are you seeing? Where did the breakdown start for them defensively? What's going wrong with the Hawks defensively?
Mm. They've played in a lot of close games in December, and they've only really won. I think it was one they've won in against. I think it was against the Sixers, but they've come up short in a lot of these close games. Uh, they've got, like you said, they've got good personnel because, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, while he might not start, he usually is out there to finish games. Dyson Daniels, of course, is a fantastic defender. Jalen Johnson has the potential to be a much better defender than he's shown this season, and he's shown in the past. I think as he's taken a bigger role in offense. I think his defense has slid slightly. That's been disappointing to see. But in late games, it happens for a number of reasons. I was watching a couple of these close games again down the stretch just to have a look at that as well a little bit closer. And it's never really one thing. It seems to be a combination of things. You've got obviously Trey Young is obviously back out there in the mix, and teams will obviously try and target him. They'll try and shoot over him. I know Josh Giddey enjoyed that matchup particularly in this month as well. Just he's just got that size advantage over Young, and he just does punish him. Teams like to obviously put Young in defensive scenarios to take advantage, and you have the Hawks then trying to rotate and scramble around to try and solve some of those issues, or when Young is beaten or is taken out of the play defensively. There's been a lot of turnovers late on that have been quite sloppy as well, and that fuels teams in transition. That gets them going too. There's obviously as well offensive rebounding, of course, has been a big thing the Hawks have struggled with this season. Teams, it's just I know it's so demoralizing. Those second possessions, teams can beat up on the Hawks on the offensive glass, score second chances. So it kind of happens for a couple of reasons. It's not really one thing. But it all really, obviously, it all adds up, and that's why they've got such a poor December record. They've come up short in a lot of these close games.
Yeah, no, they have. They've really struggled to get stops late in games. We even saw that the last time these two teams played towards the end of December. Now, look, the Hawks, you talked about their time without Trey Young, Graham. They did play some good basketball when Trey Young was out, and the numbers reflected they were better defensively without Trey Young, which, if you've been watching the Hawks, that's not necessarily shocking, right?
Hmm.
But they've struggled, they've slumped since his return, and you talked about that. And I think this begs the big question that I think maybe people who don't watch the Hawks on a regular level is, are the Hawks better without Trey Young? And what do you think his future is in Atlanta? Because there's been so much talk about that, and they haven't had a contract extension with him. So, is this team better without Trey Young, and are they potentially ready to move on?
This is always a tough one because from the outside looking in, it look like either the Hawks are better without him or they are just the same as they were with or without him. It seems like he
Mm,
doesn't seem to really move the needle too much in terms of wins. The numbers tell a little different of a story in terms of since he's come back, their offensive rating, he's got the when he's on the floor, he's on the floor, their offensive rating is at its highest.
mm,
And obviously that comes, of course, with their defensive rating being at its worst when he's on the court as well. Without him on the floor offensively, they the numbers suggest that the Hawks are just they're not good on offense without him. They still need his offensive production, and their net rating since he's come back has been minus 12. So even
mm,
with his defensive deficiencies, they still rely on his offense, especially facilitating and creating. He hasn't been a leading scorer as often this season. You've had Johnson obviously step into that role more. Nikhil Alexander-Walker has done a great job at times as well. But Young's passing is still something this team needs. And I think that was becoming a little apparent towards the end of that stretch, just before Young came back. They were beginning to dip a little on that end of things. So defensively, yes, they are much better without him. And I think having someone like Nikhil Alexander-Walker on the bench to start games can be pretty disadvantageous for the Hawks because there was I think it may have been the Knicks game. There's a couple of possessions at the start of the game when Young was back, and it was just like, oh, this is what like it was really
mm-hmm.
bad. Defensively, it was really bad, and it was just he was just making these mistakes and lapses and being exploited. It's like, oh my God, like, you were reminded of this is what it looked like when he was there, and compared to when he was out. His future is really interesting because he was quite keen, and he's discussed this before training camp. He was obviously quite keen to, obviously get an extension nailed down and sorted. The Hawks have obviously shown reluctance in that regard. He is a player option for next season. Everything they've seen this season as well, I can't imagine there's going to be an extension forthcoming unless it's at a discount, which Young is at a stage in his career where he's probably not ready for that step down at this stage. So there does seem to be an impasse, and the fact that an extension hasn't even currently been done, it wasn't done over the summer, does tend to suggest that there is definitely apprehension from this new front office led by Auntie Salah, reluctance to perhaps moving forward with Young. It's a really precarious situation, and obviously trade rumors have been flying about at this stage as well. So, yeah, I'd say it's less than certain his future going forward, and but I think we're reaching a point. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for this era to to be finished and maybe step forward with maybe Jalen Johnson leading the way.
Yeah, I've really wondered about that. It feels like it might be that time for the Hawks right now. But what you said was interesting when you looked at the numbers, Graham, with him, especially how they still need him offensively. We know about the playmaking, we know about the 3-point shooting, but the elite passing from Trey Young is a huge part of the offense too. But what have you seen as the biggest challenges for the Hawks this year offensively, in particular during their recent December slump? Was it as simple as, hey, offensively, they just struggled to get really good shots without Trey Young on the floor, or is it something more than that?
I think right now, with him coming back into the fold, they're trying to figure out all these different dynamics offensively with him in the mix. Because, like, obviously, when you bring someone like him back into the equation, now obviously with knowing what we know with Jalen Johnson now having to accommodate those needs, it is really hard to. It's not going to be at its best currently. Heading, the numbers are tough because everything that you see this month with them, the scoring's actually okay. They're 12th in the league in points scored per game. The offensive rating is a little bit further down to 19th in the month of December at the moment. The offense has actually been okay. The numbers have been okay. Yes, there's definitely been real moments without Trey where you could see you looking at the struggle to create on offense, and you think, oh, he would be really nice to have right now because as obviously defensive struggles aside, like, there's very few players in the league that can, that can work the pick and roll like Young can, that can carve defenses open like he can. He is even heading into the NBA from college, like his greatest skill set is his passing. It was
Yep.
never his shooting was obviously quite electric coming into the NBA, and that's been very up and down at times, even during his career. But his passing is just so elite. So there were issues, sometimes penetration wise, because you'd have maybe someone like Dyson Daniels who has done adequately as well in his time sharing point guard responsibilities. Nikhil Alexander Walker as well. Walker can get a little stuck at times on his drives. Daniels doesn't quite have the same burst, and sometimes when he gets into the lane and he tries to go into that spin floater, it hasn't been quite as successful at times this season. Daniels' offensive season has been really confusing, especially from 3-point range, where it's just he's barely taking any now, and I think that could be another thing to look at offensively is that like last year, I think he was a 35 or 34% shooter from three in about three attempts. This season, he's been so reluctant to take them. What he has taken is they've looked really bad, and he's shooting 12%. I think it's like what 2.2
Eesh.
attempts now he's up to, but it's really bad, and it's made very little sense watching him this season. Why it's just there's been such a reluctance to shoot, and then the absolute crashing percentage of what he does shoot, and he shoots so little these days. So that is one limiting factor for them as well, is that teams, I think, they should begin to know at this stage that he's a complete non-factor shooting the three,
Hmm.
and that can allow them to back up a little bit and defend some of those drives better. So Young is someone that obviously excels at, getting into the teeth of the defense, breaking down drives or pick and roll. So yeah, it's very tough, but scoring wise, they've been okay. It's just defensively, it's been an absolute disaster.
It's yeah, yeah. Disaster is well put for what it's been with the Hawks. I guess for fans, and this is why we always do these previews, Graham, is trying to let fans maybe understand the other side of the game, the other teams that the Knicks are playing. But in your opinion, what can turn this Hawk season around right now? Is it just can they get better defensively? Is it a need to shake up this roster once again, which is crazy to say because there was so much roster change
Mm.
in the past year and this summer with bringing in Nikhil Alexander Walker, with bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, right, and all that. Um, is it a roster shakeup? Is it making a trade? Anthony Davis is a name that's been rumored out there a lot in terms of the Hawks. What do you think needs to happen to turn the season around for the Atlanta Hawks?
I think the boring answer is they need time. Need more time to acclimate
That is
themselves.
that is a, that is a boring answer. The
It
fans
is
are
a
always going
boring
to say
answer. No,
boo.
no one likes it, but
Right.
it this is sadly true in this case that they need a little bit more time to see what because this part of the schedule has been rough. It's a rough part of the schedule. Obviously they dropped a 5 game homestand. That's rough. Two of those games were against the
Yeah.
Bulls. That's less than ideal. But they've had games against the Thunder, which they played very well in, despite not having Johnson or Young. They put up 129 points and ran the Thunder pretty close up until about 4 minutes to go in the game. That was encouraging. They were really encouraged by their second half performance against the Knicks. They really felt like they had found something because had a Nikhil Alexander Walker was discussing after the Miami game. The Knicks game was on the second night, but back to back, so it was difficult. But I think the Knicks were as well, to be fair. But oh no, sorry, the Knicks were just coming off the Christmas
Christmas,
game.
yeah,
But
they had a day off between.
they Hawks discussed how they came off of the Miami game the night before and had a meeting, and they were happy with some of the things brought up in that meeting. They seem to be happy that some of these things were put into practice in the New York game.
Mm.
Then the Thunder game was an encouragement to them as well. So they have the Timberwolves coming up. They've got the Knicks coming up. They've got two games against the Raptors in Toronto. These aren't the easiest games in the world to begin. And Alexander Walker is saying that you're not going to see the result of what they've been discussing or implementing immediately. So yeah, that is one element of it. The other element, I think they could really use some size. I don't know what a trade looks like for Trey Young at this stage. I know it's been discussed. There's other reports about perhaps the Hawks being comfortable with maybe dangling Zachary Risachet out there in
Mm.
conversations as well. Difficult. I find that one tough because I've not been enthused what Risachet has done this season. But it's not, I don't think he's been helped too much by Quinn Snyder's minutes allocation for him. They always seem to fall around 20 or so, 20 to 24 minutes per game, no matter who's out, seemingly. He's not, it's up and down when he's there. I think back and, to even when he was drafted, I was thinking even Alex Sarr might have been a good spot because I wasn't sure about Clint Capella's long-term future. Alex Sarr's size might be useful to have at this point. Okongwu's been great this season. His three-point shooting has come on. He's played well above his height, but he is ultimately at a size disadvantage, and that teams have taken advantage of that all season long. So any trade this season, I think, really should be aimed at trying to improve perhaps their size. But do you really want to give away assets for the sake of this season to just, what's the ceiling here this season? It's difficult. The Porzingis stuff is tough. Obviously, you had to expect that he was not going to be available for points of the season, but knowing what we know now about his condition, I think having gone through this Porzingis experience, I think would make the Hawks very wary about trading for Anthony Davis because
Mm.
like availability, like I know it's a cliche, but availability is sometimes the best ability.
Yes.
And having not had Porzingis, and he would be so useful for the Hawks to have. He's been pretty good when he's been on the court, but obviously that's been the issue, and that has been the issue in the past. It's unless he's going in a trade for Anthony Davis, it's tough. I know Porzingis isn't expiring, but Davis is not. He's got a couple of years left in his deal. That's going through his Porzingis experience may made them wary of taking someone on who's not going to play a lot, and you're basically in the same spot as you are currently.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's a tough spot to be in. I wouldn't throw assets like Risachet away. I know it's not been brilliant this season. Obviously, he's got the weight of a number one pick, but in a draft class we all know was lacking. But there was talent there to be found. I wouldn't like to give up on him because he's so young still as well. I would like to give up on him so soon, but it just depends how desperate the Hawks grow this season. It's a difficult predicament, and any reporting out there seems to suggest that the any returns for Trey Young don't seem to be too great on the Hawks' side. So they are left in a tough spot where maybe playing it out might just be the better option for them, and hopefully they figure it out. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it sounds like the market for Trey Young is well, I don't want to say it's not great, or it just hasn't developed really yet. And we're so early into trade season, right? We were still not at the point of getting past. We just got past December 15th. We're still approaching January 15th, another major date. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Hawks do. But yes, you're right. The answer is boring, but waiting it out might be best for the Hawks here. Um, I want to go back to the game that the Hawks played. It was the last Saturday of 2025. They played the Knicks, and they had a great comeback in that one, but they ended up falling short there. You talked about Nikhil Alexander Walker talking about the meeting they had before the Miami game, before that Knicks game, and how they were talking about some things they need to change. If you're a Hawks fan, I think you can look at that game and say, okay, there were some positives in that comeback where they were down 18 in that game. When you looked at that game, Graham, what did you take away from that matchup against the Knicks, where there are some positives? And you and I were talking before we started recording about how the Knicks are a tough matchup for the Hawks because of the size that they possess with Karl Towns, with Mitchell Robinson. But the way the Hawks fought in that game and some of the things they did, what did you like about that comeback?
It goes to something as well that Quinn Snyder was talking about after the game too. Their effort in the second half was much better, and yes,
Mm,
they got crushed on the glass. I think it was 57 to 39 or so. It was a very large disparity between, but they kept like Okongwu grabbed 14 rebounds in that game. He was really him and other were really scrapping on the boards, like trying very hard to just limit New York on that side of things. It makes it they're such a good glass team on the glass, especially against the Hawks with their size disadvantages with Okongwu. Like Okongwu's been, I think, really solid this season. He did really well in that Knicks game, and his shooting. He had a difficult game not too long ago where he was like 0 for 5 from three, and that Knicks game was like, yes, like this, he can still, he's got this still. Like this is very much in his locker, and he definitely took advantage of the Knicks from outside. So his performance is a real encouragement because you expect players like Young and Johnson to be leading the way, not Alexander Walker, but when it's a Congo that steps forward like that, and he's got that outside shot going, he can get that inside shot going, he works hard on the glass. That was really encouraging to see as well. His performance, I think, was probably the biggest takeaway, I think, from that game. But their overall effort and urgency was significantly better in the second half of that Knicks game. And everyone discussed it after the game. They were really satisfied, and even they say there's no moral victories, but they definitely seem to
right.
take one. Like multiple guys, like no more victories, but the things that we did in this game seem to be setting us up nicely. The OKC game was a good example of that. We'll see how that carries on. If this what they've discussed in that after that Miami game, if there's fruit to be yielded from that, and it's just they've had difficult opposition that they haven't really been able to show that in reflective results.
Yeah, and then I guess that's kind of how we'll close here because you want to see how much that is carried over. You've seen some good efforts
Mm.
since then, despite still having some close losses. But when you look at this matchup on Friday with the Hawks coming to MSG for the first time this season, what are the keys to the game in your eyes? What are the keys to, if the Hawks are going to have a good night at MSG, which Knicks fans don't want to see, but what do you think are the keys on both sides when you look at this matchup between the Knicks and the Hawks?
It's got to come down to how can they limit. I don't think they can really stop New York on the offensive glass and second chance scoring. You've got
Mm,
Towns, who was excellent in that last game in Atlanta, and I think he had like 18 free throw attempts. He was absolute monster at the line. I think he had 17 of those as well. He was excellent. Him and Robinson created a lot of problems with their offensive rebounding. So that has to be, I think, the first priority is how can the Hawks limit? Because I don't think you're going to stop it, but how can you limit it? Like how can we not concede 23 second chance points? Those are tough when you're taking 15 to or 10, 15 more shots than your opponent. That does add up in the box score at the end of the day. Limiting those is absolutely key as well on the Hawks side, player wise, if they could get Trey Young scoring and a good scoring game from Trey Young, he didn't have the best game scoring the ball in the last game against the Knicks. He had 10 assists, which is always good. Assist to turnover ratio is usually pretty good with Young. He does have a rogue game where he has 5 or 6, but typically speaking, he's got a good handle on that. But if he can step up scoring wise, that would be great. The Knicks made that difficult for Young last time. They were quick to pressure him and get the ball out of his hands. Young is a very willing passer, so he's no problem doing that. But obviously, you want Young to be able to have a game where he's scoring 20 and he's shooting the three ball well. And he's had a couple of decent games shooting the three ball since he's come back, but it could be a wildly inconsistent thing at times. Other than that, anything you get from Resachet is a bonus. Like if you get 10 or
mm.
12 points of Resachet, that would be really helpful. That doesn't always is always the case. You could have like a 2 for 7 game, and it's kind of anonymous at times. So that would be helpful. And V Krejci would be, he's obviously had such a great year shooting the ball so far. He's shooting over 46% from three. Uh, he stepped into the starting lineup last time he stepped into the starting lineup in OKC when Johnson was out. He is someone the Hawks are trying to get a bit more 3-point volume and a bit more uh, trying to create a few more looks for him since he's shooting such a high percentage. I don't know how real it is. I don't know how sustainable it is if he's going to continue to shoot over 45% from three. That would be very, very helpful for the Hawks. But I've wondered if he would be someone that maybe might be better served stepping into the starting lineup ahead of Risachet at some point.
Hmm.
It might help with the Hawks' spacing. It might help Risachet maybe against second units a bit more. But those two are X factors in their own way, coming either off the bench or starting. But yeah, you need good games from Young. Obviously, Johnson, you need an efficient game for him. He usually provides, but when he gets sucked into shooting those, 4 or 5 threes, he's been great. But 3-point shooting is still, is still coming along. I'd say those are the main keys. But the from the Knicks side of things, how can they limit? They can't. The Hawks need to limit one of Towns or Brunson. It's difficult for them to succeed when they have both of those guys scoring for 30 plus points as they did last time. The Sporting Cast did a great job for the Knicks as well. Quinn Snyder was talking about McCullough quite a lot in the post game
Well, that was
afterwards
a
about his
revelation.
offensive rebounding.
That was the Kevin McCullough game for Knicks fans there, Graham, because he hadn't had significant minutes like that all season, and then came in and changed the game. Played like Josh Hart, with Josh Hart being out.
Yeah, Snyder took notice. He said he was, his offensive rebounding was something that,
Yep.
was quite an important factor in that game. So yeah, I think that's the main thing, to try and limit that. And the other thing with Young starting is they obviously try and hide him a little bit on Bridges, and you just feel like that's a matchup that's waiting to be exploited as well. It wasn't really taking too much advantage. I think Bridges had like 16 or so points last time those two played, but that's something you'd think the Knicks maybe could get more out of that matchup, because obviously you got to put Daniels on Brunson,
Brunson.
and since Alexander Walker isn't starting, then that has to be Dyson Daniels, and you got to put Young somewhere. And yeah, the Bridges matchup, I worry if they go to that a bit more, they could certainly exploit that in the early stages of the game.
That's something to keep your eye on. If Bridges is a little bit more aggressive against Trey Young, then you also mentioned as one of your keys, Trey Young to get going. And we've seen Trey Young get going at Madison Square Garden. We know how much he loves to play at the Garden. So we will see what that looks like. Friday night, Knicks and Hawks. Hawks coming to the Garden for the first time this season. That is Graham Chapple. Check him out with Peachtree Hoops. He does a great job covering the Hawks. Graham, I appreciate you doing this for me. For people who don't know, Graham is coming to us across the pond. He is in Ireland, and so I've connected with him before in the previous show I did, and he's always great to talk about the Hawks with. He did such a fantastic job. Graham, I appreciate you, man. We'll have to do this again and have you on New York Got Game, but Happy New Year once again, my friend, and we'll see how it all goes down with the Knicks and the Hawks in the new year.
Should be fun, man. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. All right, so when the Knicks continue things, they'll play the Hawks Friday. Then they've got the Sixers on Saturday. And joining me to talk about the Sixers is my good friend, my brother from the great University of Pittsburgh, the one and only Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Keith, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on? Hell the pit, bro. Hell the pit.
Always hail the pit. Always, always. Keith, got to talk to you about these Sixers. Last year, I feel like when we talked, it was so different because there was so much stuff to talk about with health. That probably hasn't really changed that much. But how do you characterize where this Sixers team is right now, heading into this matchup on Saturday against the Knicks?
You know what? This Sixers team, they on Tuesday they had a phenomenal win against the Memphis Grizzlies, right? Which is really good. But when you look at the Sixers, I have to say that they're an enigma right
Mm,
now. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, we really don't know what they are. There are a lot of potential. Like they had flashes, like the game against Memphis was great. But a couple days before that, or games before that, they lost to the Chicago Bulls. They also lost to the Brooklyn Nets, right? So they have the pieces. They just have to put them all together, right? You know what I mean?
hmm
And the big three has really been a struggle at leading into that Memphis game. So to me, when we say like, what are we going to get? I mean, we'll find out. And I do think going back to the Knicks, where they did defeat the Knicks beforehand,
Yeah.
but going and playing them again, where the Knicks are going to be like licking their chops, so to speak. I think that's going to be a true test, and it's going to be a barometer game for the Sixers.
All right, so you think this is a true test coming up for the Sixers on Saturday? Let's go back to that game in December. I saw you at the game at the Garden, and this, the Knicks were a little bit tired. You could say they'll talk about that, but they didn't use it as an excuse coming off the cup. But what was your major takeaways? Because the Sixers, they handed the Knicks. That was their second home loss of the season. They have not lost at home since then. But the Sixers, I thought there were some good things, particularly with the backcourt in that game. What was your major takeaway from that win for the Sixers against the Knicks?
You know what? The number one takeaway was that Tyrese Maxey is motivated. Now, Tyrese Maxey
Mm,
always has pretty good games against the Knicks, but it's kind of like it looked like to me, it was like, you know what? I'm an all-star too. Like I'm that guy too. I
mm,
want y'all to take notice of it, right? He did that. But the biggest takeaway was that, the thing is that was surprising to me was how VJ Edgecombe was able to kind of shut down Brunson in the second half, right? To me, like if you would tell me that a rookie VJ Edgecombe would be able to hold Brunson to like a little bit of points and poor shooting in the second half, I'm gonna tell you that you're lying. Like I am. Like you got to be
right.
crazy, right? And so to me, the guard play looked really good against the Knicks, which going to the Garden can be a little bit of a hostile, intimidating environment. You know what I mean? So to me, that was the takeaway that the Sixers backcourt is better than what people think.
Yo, I think the Sixers backcourt is dope. I came away from that game really impressed with the backcourt and just the speed, Keith, right? Like the speed of both those guys is tough. I knew a little bit about Edgecombe coming out of high school here in New York, but man, there's a lot of speed there in the backcourt. I want to go to Maxey for a second because you mentioned the fact that he had something to prove in that game, right? Came in saying, "Hey, I want to show that I'm an all-star." He has played like that this season. He's among the leaders in terms of vote getting for the All-Star game.
Yeah.
But I want to take it a step further in what covering the NBA, which matters even more. Do you think he has a legit shot at being all NBA this season with the way he's playing? Because
Yeah.
I view it like he's playing on an all NBA level right now.
Do I think that it's going to be tough for him to get first team All NBA because I
Mm,
think that right now a lot of people, even though Luca has been struggling a little bit, but I think that a lot of people are looking at Luca and SGA as like okay they're going to be the guards, but I do think that and when I say something to prove, like Maxi, although he won't come out and say it, but I think the way that he's playing is letting people know that. You know, I'm a legitimate second team All NBA guy. Like I am.
mm,
Like when you look at the team, so let's compare him to other guards, right?
yeah.
Cade is playing on Detroit. They're number one in the East. We look at Brunson. The Knicks, in my opinion, are the best team in the East. He has other All Stars that's with him. But when you look at Maxi, Maxi has to carry the Sixers. Now, I know they have the big
Mm,
three. You got Joel, you got Paul George, but both of those guys are coming off of injuries. They're not the same players that they were, that people thought they were going to be. And you look at Maxi averaging 30, getting all these assists, it's kind of like he has to will the Sixers to win. So, yeah, I do believe that Maxi is a second team all NBA type guy, right? Now, you can make an argument that he could be higher, but I feel like you know how it is. People just pencil people in, and like I'm not gonna say Luca doesn't deserve it, and
right.
SGA is the MVP. He deserves it, but I feel like Maxi is putting people notice that hey, I'm just as good.
No,
I'm in that category.
yeah, no. I definitely agree. I think if I had a vote right now, he'd be a lock for me for second team in terms of
Yeah.
a guard. But yeah, that's it. But let's talk about another guy you mentioned, his backcourt mate, VJ Edgecombe, the rookie. You talked about the defense, Keith, in that last matchup against the Knicks, but I also was impressed. He hit some big time shots late,
He did.
including really, I think the 3-pointer that was a dagger for Knicks was a little bit about 2.5 minutes ago in that game.
Yeah.
How have you viewed how he's fit into this backcourt with Maxi, and how excited are you and Sixers fans, about this backcourt pairing with VJ Edgecombe and Maxi?
It's been seamless. Now I'm gonna be honest with you. When
Yeah.
I didn't think the Sixers should have drafted him. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna keep it
Who did
one.
you
Keep it.
who did you think they should have took?
I thought it would. I like and I feel stupid, but I thought it was Ace Bailey. Like I was like,
Oh,
y'all got to draft Ace Bailey. Everybody's saying he has the biggest upside of anyone. I saw VJ Edgecombe. Saw some games. Like I went on YouTube and watched him play. It was Baylor, and
yeah.
I wasn't impressed. Right, dude. I remember now. Let me tell you this. It's seamless. The first game that they had the first game of the season before a shoot around, I go up to him. I'm like, "Hey, man, you a little nervous? Did you have butterflies? Did you have to talk to anybody last night?" And then he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "I slept well last night. Nah, I got a good night's sleep. I ain't talked to nobody." And I'm like, "Come on, bro. Like, yo, you can front all you want, right?" I'm thinking that the dude drops 34 at
34 in
the
that
in the
game.
Garden,
Yep.
right? In TD Garden. So
Hmm.
then it was kind of sort of like if you would have saw him doing pregame warmups, he couldn't hit a three to save his life. He couldn't do it. But in that game, they left him wide open, and he hit five of them. So I was like, oh dang, this guy is down. Then you look at him and you see like what he does is he takes over quarters against the Knicks. You remember that third quarter, he scored like
Yeah.
12 points in that third quarter,
Yep.
right? So that's what he does. So when you look at the defense, you look at the his ball handling is a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. His shot has been better than what I thought. But the one thing I'm gonna tell you, Dex, is this guy a lot of times, and you don't rarely see this in a rookie. He'll struggle for 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter, he makes 3 plays to help them win the game. He
Mm,
does it all the time. Like when he's struggling, like
mm.
he just steps up. So when you see that, you're saying, wow, because I didn't think they should draft him. I didn't think they should start him. I thought that maybe uh what's my man's name? Quentin
Quentin
Grimes would have been
Grimes.
a better starter.
Hmm.
Yeah, because he's older, he's been in there, and I thought it would take the rookie a while. Boy, was I wrong, man. Like it and I was wrong. Like I really fumbled that one on him. This guy is way better than I expected.
Yo,
Way better.
I love the story about you going up to him before the first game, and because you're trying to get some stuff, get his mindset, for when you
Yeah,
write, and he looks at you like, nah. Like, so let me ask you this, because as the kids would say, do you think he's built differently? Are you looking at him
yeah,
like
he
that
built
now? Like
differently.
he's built different, like he's built for this.
Oh yeah, he built for this dude. Like, this is how I take it. Like when you look at him, now there's two things with him. So, and I know it is not the USA basketball team,
Right.
but he was a high schooler playing with the Bahamian national team.
Yep.
So when you talk about the guys that's there and the guy who took him under his wing, Buddy Hield, Klay Thompson, right? Eric Gordon, who plays for the Sixers. So he's in there in the gym with these pros. So he's learning from them. And
Mm,
then like they said, a couple of years when they were playing the international competition, he was one of the leading scorers. They were like, go ahead. So when you have that aspect, and we can look at Clay now, we can look at Eric Gordon now, but these are two elite shooters. Clay was a perennial all-star, may even be a Hall of Famer, right?
hmm.
So you're learning from these dudes, and then Buddy Hill is like a big brother to you. Like that's how close you are. So he's been in big games, maybe not NBA games, but big games. But here's the one thing that we don't talk about.
Mm,
So it's kind of like old school where you had the dude from the Bronx who wanted to get out of the projects, right? And like he was tired of eating them syrup sandwiches and stuff like that, right? So you saying, yo, you gotta play against LeBron, the dude from the Bronx, like, man, LeBron, I ain't worrying about LeBron. I'm trying to get the lights on for my mom, right?
right.
So
Right.
we talk about VJ Edgecombe. So VJ Edgecombe, when he got drafted, he started crying. And he
I
started
remember
saying,
that.
now we ain't got to worry about a generator no more. And you're like, whoa. So we're talking basketball. This dude is talking about, I want to put my mom in a better situation. I want to provide for my family. You know what I mean? So when you say like, yo, you got to go out there and you got to play in Madison Square Garden, which most people get intimidated to. He like, dude, I'm keeping the lights on. I got to do it. Like you understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I
like
get it.
the stuff like this is bad. This is just what it should be. It's a sport. It ain't life or death to him. It's a sport. So that's why he like, yo, I'm gonna go with the flow. I'm gonna go with it.
It's hard. For I think people. I'm glad you contextualized that too, because I think people don't think sometimes, like for athletes that have dealt with real stakes is the way I'll put it, like the way you just said, right? Like real stakes, like not life or death. I don't want to make it hyperbolic, but living, surviving, right? Having your family survive. Yeah, you step on the court. What's the first game? What's the fourth quarter against the Knicks at the Garden, right? I've seen tougher things than that. I've have real things I'm trying to provide for my family. It's different. So to go back to what I said, you're built different for that, right? That's great perspective on Edgecombe, who I think is a really dope rookie. Let me talk to you about Joel Embiid. Keith, I know you just saw this the other night. Joel dropped 34 in 38 minutes in the win over Memphis. That 38 minutes, it was a season high. But I guess two parts. How encouraged were you by what you saw with Joel Embiid? We know Joel Embiid's talent, but then where is he in terms of health at this point in the season? And what I mean by that is where is he in terms of, okay, the Sixers can rely on him to be on the court. Are we even there or not there?
Nah, we're not there. I don't think that you can. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with him with the court. Not this game that he played. He fell a couple times in this one. But
Mm,
the last time that he was on the floor, I want to say, the last time he played against Cleveland, I keep saying Cleveland, against Chicago, he fell about 3 or 4 times. And then just about every occasion, he was reaching out, grabbing his knee,
ooh,
right? You know, then the game that he played before that, he fell down and then he goes to the locker room to get checked out and he comes back. So it's hard to say you're past that every time this guy falls is a scare. And then not only that, it's like when we look at it, you know, right knee injury, right knee injury management, left knee injury management. Oh well, he got the cold now. Oh well, he sprained his ankle. So it's hard to say we're past this because I think that this is something that the Sixers are going to deal with for a while. Like, he said last year that I'll never play in back to back, both ends
he
of a
did.
back to back again. It's over with. That's what he said. So with that being said, is one of those things where, I think that you got to be realistic. You'll get these type of performance from him, but the thing is, the next test is, can he do these, and can he score 34 points on a Monday and come back and do 34 or 31 again on a Wednesday?
Right.
Because what's happening now is he's putting up great numbers, and I'm not taking away from the offensive number he's doing, but the thing about the NBA is it's a grueling sport. And can you do it for over 65 or something games, right? And I don't know if he can do that just yet because of his body.
Where do you see him also? I think fans will be intrigued about this, who don't watch the Sixers. Where are you seeing him defensively? Because you talked about being encouraged about the offensive numbers, but with the injury history and, is he trusting himself to move defensively? How's the lateral movement? Because this guy
Yeah,
was a defensive presence when he was healthy, but
yeah, he
he's
was,
not that now.
yeah, he was like I think he was a 5-time All Defensive player.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the defense has been a struggle. What we see now is like he doesn't jump as much as he has now. He's been jumping a lot more recently, right?
Mm,
But the lateral movement, he can't get the spaces like he used to. Now, the weird thing about it is prior to the Memphis game, the 76ers defensive rating was better with Embiid on the floor than when he wasn't.
hmm.
But when you look at the eye test, you're saying to yourself, man, they may be a better defensive team without him. Because guys are like they were getting them involved in a lot of pick and rolls heading into that Memphis game.
Mm.
they were, and then guys would like come and just run a straight line and get to the rim on them. Now he would block a couple of them, but more often than not, it was like a dunk or it was a layup, right? So there was a struggle there, right? Now, the one thing that I will say that they're doing now to help alleviate that is they'll bring in the guy a Dembona, who's a shot blocker and stuff and help out. So what happens is Embiid doesn't have to be in that drop coverage anymore or
Right.
whatever because you got a Dembona back there and he's protecting the rim. And then that enables Embiid to get blindside blocks, meaning when the guy is like like bonus contesting him and the guy thinks that's it, Embiid swiping at the ball,
Right.
stuff like that. But yeah, his defense again the numbers can be a little bit misleading. Defensive ratings for the team were better when he was on the floor, but the last couple games he struggled. He really struggled
He
on the
should
defensive end
seen him
before that.
seen him struggle there. And so I guess where I'll go next as we get closer to wrapping up here. So speaking of health, do you trust, and this is asking a lot, Joel Embiid and Paul George to be healthy for the Sixers when it matters the most, which is the playoffs, right? Where there's no back-to-backs, they can
That's a great
play
question.
every other day. And if they are healthy, right? Like let's just say I can tell you they're gonna be healthy, they can play every other day in the playoffs. What do you think this team's ceiling is if those guys are healthy?
That's the $1 million question, right? Because you look at the East and you say, no offense to a lot of teams out there, but I look at it as a two-team race right now. I look at Detroit, and we don't even know what Detroit's going to do once the playoffs come. And you look at the Knicks. The
Right.
Knicks are better, in my opinion, than they were last year, right? So, the 76ers, I think if healthy, they could contend with those teams, right? If healthy, right? But the only question mark is like I have more faith in Paul George than I do Embiid. And the
Hmm.
reason being is because like Embiid has yet to play a season where he was injury free. And when you think about it, he's always been injured in the playoffs. Even in the bubble, people forget he like sprained his ankle, like twisted his ankle.
Mhm.
So like to me, it's one of those things where I don't know, and I don't want to wish bad luck on him, but I just can say it's hard for me to say I got 100% faith on him. Now, the difference that I have with Paul George is, Paul George is a guy who can play off Maxey. He can play off of VJ. He can be a defender. He can be a point forward, so to speak, get stuff involved. A lot of times for Embiid to be successful, he has to be a major contributor, right?
Mm.
Whereas I think Paul can do some role playing stuff and distribute the rock. So that's the thing. So to me, I don't really have. I don't want to say I lack faith in him, but to me, it's like I've just seen this before. To a point is, I'm not going to say speak negative. I just want to see it happen. You know
No,
what I mean? I just
yeah,
want to see
no,
it happen.
I get it. You gotta see it happen. So you're very high. Well, so let me put words in your mouth. You think the Knicks are the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. I I'd be inclined to agree with you, especially with the way they're playing.
Yeah.
Mike Brown, a lot of pressure on him coming here in New York to try to take over from Tom Thibodeau and try to get this team to where people think they can go. But he's been using a lot of different lineups, Keith, a lot of different lineups, which I've been a fan of. I actually like how he's managed the roster. What Knicks group, because you got to see a little bit of it the last time you were up here in New York, which Knicks personnel group do you think could give trouble for the Sixers when you look at them? With the combination of the lineups that Mike Brown uses, is there a lineup that you look at and say, hey, that gives the Sixers a lot of problems?
Know what? The big when they played the first game, and it kind of shocked me a little bit, just a little bit, because they didn't go with the bigs, the two
The
big
two
guys.
bigs.
They
Yeah.
didn't have,
Hmm.
yeah, the two bigs. They didn't have Mitchell, and they didn't have Cat on the floor. Cat started at the center spot, right?
Yep.
I feel like now if you got Brunson out there, and then you have okay, this is the lineup to me, and it's a big lineup, right? You got Brunson at the one, You got Mikal Bridges at the 2. You have OG at the 3, right? Cat at the 4, and that's their normal starting lineup. And then Mitchell at the 5. Yo, I think that the Sixers are going to be in trouble in the playoff series with that one. Because when we look at the 76ers, they tend to struggle against length. Big post players. Like Chet Holmgren was looking like when he was in high school and everybody was hyping him up the way he was scoring at will against the 76ers, right? You look at I want to say Cleveland, when they played Cleveland, like it was a blowout. So whereas guys didn't stay in the game as long as they could, but their two big guys dominated the Sixers. You look at the Lakers, right? We're talking about the Lakers. You know, their their starting center and the backup. Well, who's the starting center? The dude from the
Aiden.
Bahamas who used to
DeAndre
be
Aiden.
Aiton.
Aiden,
Yo,
yeah.
Aiton, I think he either shot 7 for 7 or 9 for 9 against the Sixers. Right? So if you have Cat and Mitch, and then you have OG at the 3, right? And then you have Mikal and Brunt, dude, I think that's a hard matchup for the Sixers, man. I do, because you already got, now what you do is you got Mikal and you got OG. We know they're the defenders. And you know what they're going to try to do is, okay, one of y'all get Max and the other one y'all get whoever else, right? Then you're going to put Mitch on Embiid. And you know Mitch is going to be motivated because he got hurt when he
Yes.
played against the dude,
Yes.
remember?
Yeah.
So
The fans don't forget, Keith. The fans have not forgotten here in New York. They have not forgotten.
He wants all this. He wants all the smoke.
All
as
the
they
smoke.
say, right?
Yes.
All the smoke. And then Cat is like tough to guard. Like we'll say Cat might be getting dunked on, doing stuff. But if you pick Cat in space and then you say, okay, PG, you got to guard him. That's a hard guard, man.
That's tough.
That's a tough guard.
That's
So
tough.
then you bring Clarkson off the bench as the 6th man. Yo, that's why I think they're going to win it this year.
Wait, so this is gonna this is gonna have Knicks fans.
Let me see. I think they're going to come out east. OKC is going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them. But when we look at it, like OKC is going to be tough for them. But I don't know. The Knicks have a chance of winning it, man. I do.
So you're very high on this Knicks team. You think there's a chance they could win it all?
I do.
But you really like them coming out the East. You really like the Knicks coming out the East.
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, because here's the only thing about Detroit, and the people I know, my people in Detroit gonna be like, "Come on, kid." My thing is, you and I both know that playoff basketball is completely different from regular season basketball.
Absolutely.
Right? You know what I mean? It's regular. It's different. And you were there that night that they played the Sixers when they came back. And what did Mike Brown say? We did some stuff in the play-in tournament. I mean, not the play-in tournament, the in-season tournament. But we're going to go back to our normal rotation now, right? So now it's like they were playing championship basketball at that particular point in time, and now they're going back and they're doing all these different rotations. And when you start seeing a guy going or utilizing all these different rotations, basically he's trying out stuff for the playoffs.
Yep.
He's trying to see what matchups he has, right? So, I just look at Brunson. We know that he's a bucket. He gets fouls. You got the 2 defenders and you got the bigs, and then you got those guys coming off the bench. He's utilizing the bench now.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, I do think, dude, I think they have a legitimate chance. Now, again, it's going to be tough. But, when you look at Hartenstein, a guy who played for the Knicks who was great, but then you say him and Mitch, you pair it. So then you say Cat and Chet. Okay. So then you go down the roster. You know what I mean? You got SGA and you got Brunson. Now SGA is bigger than them, but they're kind of like similar. You know what I mean? Like they do what they do, get the thing. So it's going to come down to me. Really, it's going to come down to Jalen Williams, and it's going to come down to whichever bench is better. You know what I mean? On that particular night, I really like this Knicks team. I do. I like it.
All right,
I think they're good.
Knicks fans are going to be happy when they watching this. They're going to be very happy. They're going to be like, Keith Pompey was a believer in us. at least somewhat. I'll say that. Last thing for me, Keith, when you look at
And then they're going to be. They're going
yeah,
to
they'll come for you if you do something wrong. They'll come for you on that. Keith, when you look at this matchup on Saturday, where we saw the Sixers come into the Garden and win one last month in December. What do you think of the keys for this game on the Knicks and the Sixers side? What are the keys when you're looking at this game and this matchup on Saturday?
Well, for the Knicks, I think the biggest key is one thing we talked about, the height advantage. They got to utilize that because, I mean, let's face it, they're younger than the Sixers bigs, the tall ones. They're healthier. But also, I think the Knicks, if I'm the Knicks, I'm trying to do a better job of getting Brunson free, getting him in some space, right? You know what I mean? Because I think with VJ, that was a thing. That was something. For the Sixers, you know what? I think that Joel Embiid gotta find a fountain of youth. Paul George has to find something. Like they have to be pivotal. Pivotal. They gotta play. They gotta play big, and that means on like both sides of the floor, right? Now I do expect the Sixers going to their big lineup too, right? Maybe not Drummond. I mean, Drummond might be there for the offensive boards, but I do expect Bona to come. The problem is Bona has to stay out of foul trouble. He comes in and gets quick fouls, like multiple early on. If he does that, they're going to be in trouble. And if Embiid can't do what he normally does, like he used to, show some of that on the defensive end, it's going to be a long night for the Sixers.
All right, we will see how it plays out on Saturday night. Knicks and Sixers again at the Garden. Keith, I will see you there. Before I got to ask you, how you feeling about the Mets? I know you grew up as a Met fan. What do you like about what the Mets are doing this offseason?
I don't know, man. It's pretty good. Like it's weird though because like I'm like hearing there's a guy on the beat. His name is Tony Jones from Philly, but he's a diehard baseball fan too.
Tony
And
is,
it's
yep.
all he talks. Yeah, yeah. So like I hear him saying something like, okay, let me get into it. Like I haven't really processed everything totally yet.
Yeah.
But I will. But yeah, Tony's a diehard baseball fan. He loves the Knicks too.
I didn't know that. You know what's funny? I didn't know that. Next time I saw Tony last time we was at the Garden, so I gotta talk to Tony about that. See, there's some good guys on the Inquirer. I like guys at the Inquirer. Always good, always good. But that is my guy Keith Pompey from the great University of Pittsburgh. Hail the Pit. Always catch him covering the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Keith, man, appreciate you coming on and talking some Knicks Sixers to preview everything here on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game, man. I really am. I really am.
Should be a good one. Again, check out Keith's work. That's going to do it for this edition of New York Got Game. I'm Dexter Henry. Happy New Year to everybody. Once again, we'll catch you next time. Another edition of New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.